Hi everyone, this is Sharan here. Welcome to my channel. Today is the final day of SQL. So I am covering various concepts as well as syntax to queries that are commonly used while working on a database. So the concepts that we have covered so far in the 5 days are the key concepts or the key syntaxes that are most commonly used while working on any database. So apart from this, what you need to do is you need to acknowledge, you need to know that there are various other things about a database, such as like there are various functionalities. For example, Oracle DB would offer a special functionality which is not maybe present in the other databases, but there are ways to execute it. But maybe, for example, say pivot as a function. So in some databases, pivot is available as a function, whereas in many other databases you need to write the queries in order to implement what the function pivot is doing. So in some cases, there are functions available which makes your life easier. In other cases, you need to know how to implement all those by writing your own SQL queries. And apart from that, there are also different things such as like ways to make the queries run faster by creating indexes. And in some cases, like people also create stored procedures, like when something needs to be executed on a regular interval, so that like the queries can be packaged into a stored procedure and can be scheduled using an SSIS job. So this is something that is not commonly used. So what we have covered so far is good enough for you to get started to understand about what a database is, how to write queries, and how to get started and start moving forward. And I will also be providing you some of the useful links to various resources where you can learn more about SQL, as well as you can practice what you know using the interactive interface, where there would be, as I explained in the previous session, there would be a scenario, there would be an explanation about the data set, and there would be an interactive window where you can type in your SQL script and then execute and then see if the results that you are getting is matching with what has been asked. By that way, you can improve your SQL skills as well. So that's about it. Let's get into the details for today's session. So the various topics that we are going to see today is, as you see on my screen, we are going to see how to implement multiple joins. So previously we learned about a join. So we just joined two different tables, but practically while working on a database, you would be joining data from so many different tables. So it won't be just two tables. And we will be going through various string operations, like how to do concatenation, how to take a substring, or various other string operations that would be commonly done, like how to replace a particular text and so on. And next one is date and various date operations that are commonly performed, right? How to format a particular date, how to convert a string which is a date into a date format, so that the database understands that it is an table, it is an data which has the date as a detail, so that it can be used in the filter conditions as well. So if you have a date stored as a string, so then if you use it in the filter condition, it will not give you proper results. So whenever you have a date, you need to ensure that it has been stored in the date format, it has been converted accordingly. So while converting, you need to ensure that the values are translated accurately, so it's not like the dates are not messing up. And the other things are like how to create sequencing. Let's say we are joining data from multiple tables, and for one record in table A, we are getting, like, let's say 3 records from table B. So then in those cases, let's say we want to have all those values, so maybe we want to add some additional column and then sequence them whenever there are multiple records. And we are going to learn about how to do all this sequencing using partition and order by. So that is something that would be commonly used, but something that might not, like many people wouldn't know about it. And the last one is subqueries, like how to have different queries, like a main query and a subquery within it, like how things work in case of subqueries, like how to write them. So this is what we are going to see today. So as you see on my screen, the various tables that we are going to use today are these. So I'm going to use the default DB that comes up with MySQL, and so we are going to make use of these tables here that you see on my screen, so which has the data about the actor, and so this is about the film. And so film is the main table, and then film actor is a table that connects the film ID to the actor ID. So one film ID could have multiple actors. And from the film actor table, what we do is we join the actors table to get the details about the actors, like what's their first name, what's their last name, and so on. So this is a simple example. I'm going to get the record for a particular movie. So this is from the film table, right? We have one record for a movie, and when I use this film ID and then get the data from the film actor table, you would see that for one film ID there are 3 actor IDs, and then I'm going to use these actor IDs in a third query in order to fetch their details. So what we have done is, first we have written a query to get details of a movie, and in the second query we have got the details of a particular movie as well as what is their matching actor IDs, and we use all these matching actor IDs in our where clause in order to fetch the details of those actors, like what's the name of those actors. So what we are going to do is we are going to combine these 3, and we are going to do this in one single query. So what we are going to do is we are going to do multiple joins. We are going to join all these 3 different tables. So as I mentioned in the previous session, it starts always with select and the list of columns that we want to fetch in our query, and each table can be referenced using a short name. So I have given F for film, and then FA for film actor table, and A for the actor table. So while you give all these tables a new name, try to make it close to what the table names are. For example, if the table name has 2 words to it, for example, as mentioned here, film actor, so taking the first alphabet of each of those words, FA. So by this way, what happens is even when you write a huge query, so when you see the word FA, you will remember, okay, FA means film actor, and it also helps for someone who is new to read those. It is more readable actually. So this is how we do the join. So we do the first table and the inner join second table, and both these tables should be joined based on the film ID. And now that we need to join one more table, so I again give inner join the third table, and how this third table needs to be joined. So I'm joining this third table with the one that is with the second table that we already have here. So this is how the join would work. So when I execute this, so if you would see that I'm combining data from all the 3 tables. So let's pick up the example that we used for analyzing the data. So let me pick up this movie and then run this particular query. So we can see for this movie there are 3 actors, and the data of all those actors' name, first name as well as last name, have been fetched. So this is how an multiple join would work. So next one is, let's say we have first name and last name. We want to do concatenation. So we want this to come up as one column. So what we can do is we can use concat, and we can specify, as you see on my screen, we can specify the first name and the last name. So what I'm doing is I would want to have a space in between the first name and last name. So that's why I'm adding an empty space in between. So this is very similar to the previous query. The only difference is I'm using the concatenation to join the first name and last name, and what I'm doing is I'm giving an alias name for this particular new column, the new combined column, as name of the actors. So let me execute and show you what happens here. So as you see on my screen for that movie, previously we had a first name and last name as 2 different columns. Now all of them are combined to one column, and the column name, a new name has been given for this particular column. So that's about the concatenation. So these are all, like you can see that the various concepts I'm trying to cover are quite different. So what I'm trying to do is, in this last day, I'm trying to explain as many syntaxes as possible, so that you would have a good understanding about the commonly used functionalities in SQL, and you would be able to work on, and if you are provided a particular DB and if you are given an access to it, you should be in a good position to just go through the various tables and then write the queries, and then you would be in a more comfortable position. Of course, with practice you would gain more knowledge, but this will help you to get started. And this is about concatenation. So now coming to the substring. So let's say we want the description of that movie is really huge. We want to just fetch let's say the first few characters. So by executing this, I'll show you what happens. So we can see we have the title, and we can see that I'm using the substring here, and in the substring I'm giving the description. So this is the column from which we are going to take a portion of text. So the value here mentions about the character from where it needs to start, and the second value would tell us like how many characters needs to be fetched from the one that we mentioned here. So one in the sense like we want to start from the first character and we want to fetch the 10 characters. So let's say if I give 25 here, and let me execute and show you what happens. So if you see now, what happens is it starts from the first character, it fetches the first 25 characters. So now what I can do is I can give an alias name as a short description. So now by executing this, you will see this particular column has been given a name. So previously, before using this, it will be coming up with a dummy name, which might not be preferable. For example, like whatever syntax that we have given here has taken as the name of the column. So by specifying an alias name, what happens is it becomes much more cleaner. So now it's looking like slightly messy, but by using an alias name, it becomes more cleaner and very useful for whatever analysis that we are doing. So it's always better when we use all these kind of functionalities to replace the name of a column with an alias name that is more readable. And that's about the substring. So the next one is how to convert it into the lowercase. So here we use the functionality lower. So this function will ensure that whatever character that is present here in the description will all be converted into lowercase. So when I execute this, so as you see, the entire content is converted into lowercase. So I can use upper, and when I execute now, what happens is everything is being converted into the uppercase. So that's how these work. There are various functionalities on string operations. So you can maybe go through, I will provide you some reference links where you can go through and learn more about the various functions that are used commonly on and string. And the next one is replace. So now let's say we want to replace a certain word in the description with another word. So here in this case, in this query, I will show you what's happening. So here in this description, we have the word girl here. So let's say I want to replace the word girl in this description with the word boy. So what I can do is I can use the replace functionality. So this is the column in which the replacement should happen, and the first one is the value which needs to be replaced, and the second value here is the value with like what the value that needs to be the new value. When we replace this particular word here, what should be the new value that replaces it? So here I am saying that whenever there is the word girl appears in the description column, it needs to be replaced with the word boy. So let me execute this and show you what happens. So if you see here, like wherever the word girl appeared, so that has been now replaced with the word boy. So yeah, so that's how a replace functionality would work. So these are all some common functionalities. That could have been some issues in the data. Let's say maybe we want to replace certain code with a new code, so this can be used. And the next one is the string length. So let's say we want to understand about the length of those strings. So that could be some cases where it's really huge, or we might have to do some kind of an operation on the string. So it is really important to know about the string length. So let's say we want to fetch the last 4 characters. So what we need to do is we need to know the maybe number of characters that is present, and we can accordingly write a query to fetch maybe the last 4 characters. There are other functionalities for like left and right substring which can do this thing, but what I'm trying to say is that could be some use case where it is really important to know the length of the string. So in those cases, you can just use length to get the length of it. And Coming to the date functionality, so we are going to see how to change the format of a particular date and how to add a number of days to a particular already existing date column. And we are going to see how to get the current date from by writing the query, and how to do a date difference. And these are all the various date functionalities that we are going to cover today. So the first one is about the date formatting. So in our database, like if I can show you, so in the payments table, we have the payment date as a column. So this payment date is nothing but the date when the payment has been made, and it is in the timestamp format. So let's say I want to convert this particular column, which is in timestamp format, into a different format, let's say month, day, and year. So I can use this particular syntax here. So what will happen is when I execute this, so if you see, there is the payment date column here, the original value, and the new value is here. So as I mentioned, the format, the percentage capital M means that the month will be fully spelled out, like it won't be represented as integer. We can find the name of the month, and the percentage small d would give date in range of values 1 to 31 depending upon the date, and percentage Y, when we mention capital Y, the year will be represented in 4 digits. So that's why you can see the value is coming up as May, like MAY, May 25, 2005. So I can also give this an alias name as new date. So now when I execute this, you would see a new column name for this one, and then values coming up like this. So let's say I want to fetch only the year. So here, by executing this and then giving only ampersand, percentage, or percentage Y, so what happens is only the year value comes up. So now let's say I want to add a few dates to the payment date. So let's say once the payment has been append, maybe I need to send out an invoice within 10 days. So what I will do is I will add 10 days to this payment date, and then see if the invoice is having sent before that. So in those cases, what I can do is I can use the functionality called add the date, and the first one is the name of the column, which has the date value, and then the second one is the number of days that I want to add. So here I'm saying that interval, and then I'm saying 10 day. So now by executing this, let me show you what happens. So here you can see the due date is the new column that we have created now. So I have created this new column due date by adding 10 days to the payment date. So here the payment date was 25th of May, and adding 10 days to it, it comes out to be as 4th of June. So the timestamp all remains same, it only the days are being added to it. So let's say we want to get the current date. So we want to filter out all the records up to the current date. So then what we can use is we can use a current date. So this is a functionality which will fetch the current date. So to show you, I'm going to use just select and then use this function here. So what will happen is this function here will get the current date, and so this is the current date, the 28th of November 2020. And let's say we want to do the date difference. We have two different columns, and then we want to do the difference between those two columns. So here in this case, there is a column called the last update, and then there is one more column called as the payment date. So I want to see the difference of between these two columns. So let me execute this and then show you. So as you see, there is a payment date and then last update date. So the difference between these two is 256 days in this case, and then so on. So that's about the date differences. So now let's say we want to convert a string into a date format. So here what I'm doing is by giving it within a quotes, it means that it is a string, and I'm using the convert option to convert that into a string. So here in this case, when I use convert and then give a string and then say convert it into a date, so then we can see it has been converted into a date. So it appears to be in same format, but what would happen is when you check the data type, it will be coming up as date format. So previously it would have been in the string format. So when I give the same date in different format and then use the convert functionality, so we can still see that the date that is present in this particular format is still being converted in the right way. But let's say I'm going to change the format of the date. So I'm going to give day, month, and year, and then I'm going to use the convert option now. So now what will happen is, now if you see, it is not able to convert. So the convert functionality here in MySQL can convert dates only in these particular formats. If the input is in this particular format, if the string is in this particular format, it knows that it is a date, and then it converts it into a date. Whereas when we give the date in any other format, then it doesn't work. So then what happens is, for example, if we want to convert a string which has the date value, but it is in a different format, so then what we can do is we can use string to date functionality. So here what happens is we are saying that so this is a date, and then we are saying that the first one is date, the second column is month, and then the third value is the year, and then all of them are comma separated. So by executing this, what happens is so if we can see, it has been converted into the date format. So this will be quite useful, right? Because in most cases when you are dealing, like when you are trying to import a particular data, and then if it has the date columns, so if it has been read as a string format, then it will not be useful. You won't be able to do a lot of filter options. There won't be a lot of filter options. So it is required to convert that into a date format. So in most cases, what happens is, while importing the data itself, we specify those columns as date format, and then we import it properly. But just in case, if we have to convert from one format to another format, so let's say we have two different sources, but the dates in the two tables are in two different format, so we have to make it consistent so that we can do various analysis. So in those cases, we use convert and the string to date functionalities, wherever, like whichever is applicable. Coming to the next one is about sequencing. So the previous example that we saw here, so when we were trying to get the various movies, their title as well as the actors who acted on this particular movie. So here is this one. So what we saw is, we saw the name of the movie and then the various actors. So now for one movie we have 3 records, because in this particular movie there were 3 actors. So now let's say we want to order these actors, we want to give a sequence to this one. We just don't want one movie to have 3 rows, we want to sequence them based on a particular format. So then what we can do is we can use sequencing. The sequencing can be done using rank or dense rank or a row number. So depending upon what type of DB that you are working on, the syntax might slightly change. So what I'm saying is, I'm saying that we need to create a rank, so which will be kind of a sequence number, and this rank needs to be created over, and then this is what the details are. So I'm saying that we have to partition by title. So when I say partition by title, whenever there are multiple movies, so for each movie the sequence should restart from 1. So for within a particular movie, let's say this particular movie, it will start with 1 and then it will get incremented with the value. But when it goes to the new record with the new movie, so then the index or the rank should restart from 1. So it says that partition by title means that for every new title, the values, the sequencing should restart. The rank here should restart from 1. And then we are saying the rank should be given based on the order of the concatenated value, by concatenating the first name and last name. And then we are saying that the sequence should be based on the ascending order. So now let me execute this and show you. So when I execute this, so you can see for each movie here, the values, the sequence starts with 1, and then you can see the values are being sorted. And they are being ordered based on the name. So maybe we will pick up the example that we were referring so far. So here in this case, so we have 3 records and the values are being sorted by based on the name of the actors in the ascending order. So that's how sequencing would work. So this is also something that is very, very, very useful, like very commonly used in any of the project, because when you try to join different data, there would be, in some cases, there would be join growth like this one. So it's not exactly like an issue, because one movie has many actors. So it is expected for the table to grow. But let's say we want to sequence it, and we want to filter only the main actors or the top actors, right? We can sequence based on anything. Let's say we have we have the screen time of these actors. We can ensure that the records are sorted based on the screen time. So whoever is who's coming up, right, who's taking up the majority of the screen time will come up in the top, and we can filter out the top 5 actors based on that. So So that's about the use case, like how it would be used. And then this is something that is very, very commonly used in any of the analysis that you do. And then last one for today is about subquery. So here in this case, what I'm trying to do is let me execute first and then show you the data so that I can explain you what's happening here. Okay, so here what we are doing is we are the top portion here, if you see. So this is very similar to what we already had. So when I execute this one, so this has the movie title as well as the name of the actors who acted in this movie. So now let's say, so this has about 1000 rows. So this has more than 1000 rows. Since I'm limiting it to 1000 rows, it's fetching me the first 1000 rows in the screen here. So you can see like the list is huge. But let's say I want to fetch only the movies which add an actor who has acted in at least 40 movies or more than 40 movies. So then what I do is I come up with this particular query where I mention that all the actors who have distinct count of films more than 40, which means that all these actors would have acted in more than 40 movies, only fetch all those. So when I execute this, I'm getting 3 actors. So these 3 are the actors who have acted in more than 40 films. So now what I'm saying is, in the first table, instead of fetching me like all the records, fetch me only movies which has an actor who has acted in more than 40 movies. So what I say is, I say where the concatenated value here is name of the actor should be equal, should be present in the outcome of this particular table. So the outcome of this particular table will be nothing but name of the actors. So whenever these actors are found, so fetch only those records. So now this time when I run this particular query here, so what would happen is we won't be getting 1000 records. So now we are getting only the movies with those 3 actors who have acted in more than 40 movies. So that's one use case for subquery. So where we have one main query here, and there is a subquery here, and this is also something that is commonly used. So we might have to create like multiple subqueries, like subportions. So maybe that could be a requirement to have a subquery within a subquery. So this is how to write. This is one of the ways to write a subquery, and that's about the various topics for today. So what we have covered so far is we have covered like how to do multiple joins. We have covered about various string operations, data operations, how to sequence, and how to write an subquery. I hope you have learned something new today. If you have learned something new, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you think this is useful for any of your friends, please share it with them as well. And bye for now. See you with a new topic in the next session. See ya. Bye.